Okay, we will now call to order the virtual meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. All participants are asked to keep their microphones on mute and cameras off during staff presentation and committee discussions. Participants wishing to speak to an application during the public meeting portion of this meeting will be called on by name, one at a time during the public meeting. At that time, the participant called on may unmute their microphone and turn on their camera if they wish to speak. If you wish to speak or receive further notice regarding the application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. Public participants will receive another sign-in opportunity when the public meeting portion of this meeting is called to order. I am Jacqueline Grimes, Vice Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. I will now take attendance of our committee members and staff. Please raise your hand or declare your presence when I call your name. Councillor Wendy Alford.
Present.
Bill Wendenmeyer.
Here.
Jack Anderson.
Here.
Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Senior Planner Carl Grenke.
Present.
Planning Coordinator Mary Reming.
Present.
To review, committee members are asked to raise their hand when they wish to speak. Alternatively, please find an appropriate opportunity at any available time to notify the chair verbally if you wish to speak. So, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Wendy, seconded by Bill. All in favor? Right. Adoption of minutes, Planning and Advisory Committee meeting, May 13th, 2021. I have a motion.
I would so move.
Moved by Jay, seconded by Jack. All in favor? Disclosure of monetary interests? None? Okay. So we will now open the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Please be advised you may leave this meeting at any time. Applicants, agents, and members of the public logged on to Zoom to participate in this public meeting are asked to keep their microphones on mute and cameras off until called on by the Vice Chair. If you wish to speak to an application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. The purpose of this meeting is to consider zoning bylaw amendment application ZA 21-01 for 2-4 Main Street West. The subject application is proposed to rezone the property to general commercial with site-specific special exemption. The special exemption is proposed to accommodate the conversion of an existing office at the rear of the ground level to a barrier-free bachelor apartment and to provide relief from the required number of parking spaces for the new unit from 1.25 spaces to 1 space. This meeting is your opportunity to provide any feedback on this application, and the Planning Advisory Committee welcomes any questions, comments that you may have. We encourage you to do so at this public meeting, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited if written or oral comment is not submitted. Town Council is the approval authority for applications for amendments to the zoning bylaw. The committee will review the application and any comments or concerns from the public to inform their recommendation to council for the rezoning application. I will now pass the meeting over to our senior planner, Carl Grenke, to report on the notification and summary of application ZA-21-01. Following his presentation, I will call on the public participants one at a time to offer feedback, comments, or questions regarding the proposal. I will also offer the applicant an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the committee by the public. Carl?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Dave, could you please tee up the PowerPoint presentation for the zoning application? Thank you. So as Jacqueline mentioned, this is a zoning amendment application proposed for 2-4 Main Street West. Next slide, please. That is the property most commonly known as containing the My Place restaurant right at the front, next to the Rexall building on the first block of Main Street, west of Beckwith Street. Next slide, please. So the property is roughly 6,000 square feet with about 15.2 square meters of frontage along Main Street West. It's a two-story building there. There's 4 residential units on the second story being renovated. There is, of course, the restaurant at the front facing the street. There's an existing apartment in the middle behind that, and then an old contractor's office at the rear, and the driveway and shared access to the pharmacy is also on this the property. So parking to the residential units has been historically provided through agreements with neighboring property owners on an as-needed basis. So the proposal we have here is to convert the office space at the rear to create a barrier-free bachelor apartment. So the property, of course, as you know, is within the is downtown. The official plan designates that as downtown core. So those policies would apply. Next slide, please. So the property is zoned general commercial, which is the common zoning throughout the downtown area. There's a handful of exceptions here and there that have different rules, but broadly speaking, the zone allows a very wide range of commercial, institutional, and community uses. It only allows residential development on upper stories there, and part of the reason for that is to encourage a common pedestrian-friendly streetscape and consistent streetscape there, and that's the zoning is pretty hard and fast there, which is why we have the application here. The existing ground floor residential unit has been in place for quite some time, and we believe it's likely legally non-conforming. That's not the subject of the application. It's just there. The zoning bylaw also requires 1.25 parking spaces per unit. So in zoning, 1.25 is unfortunately rounded to 2. So that can be provided on site, or it can be secured through a long-term arrangement on another property within 150 meters of the site. But the objective of that particular zoning provision is to ensure that renters have places to park. So in this case, the zoning process, we're only looking at parking for the new unit. So the arrangements for the existing units are what they are, and that's not something that's they're not really changing as part of this through the zoning. We're looking at the new one. So as I'd mentioned, the existing zoning provision does not allow ground floor residential, and that's why this application has been submitted to allow the conversion of that ground floor unit to residential. Next slide, please. So what's being proposed here through this application is a site-specific special exception zone that applies to this property only. And I guess the working name for that zone would be General Commercial Special Exception 22. And that zoning would allow the ground floor residential at the rear of the property. So this is where adjacent the existing residential, the restaurant's not proposed to be changed. This would just be at the very rear, and also to accommodate a single parking space rather than 1.25 or 2. Next slide, please. So there's the site. Unfortunately, I did cheat and use Google for the bottom one to get the best picture of the area there, but it's on the image on the upper right shows where that proposed apartment would be at the very back. As I'd mentioned, there is an apartment beside it and apartments above it. Next slide, please. So the applicant has submitted some supporting information along with the application. So a planning summary that described the proposal, summarized it within the context of the zoning bylaw and OP, and the summary highlights the importance of rental housing within the community, and certainly creating housing stock in the downtown core where it's accessible to many existing services. The housing and also references the housing task force report and recommendations that look at housing, and that would be looked at through an upcoming zoning. So the site plan and construction drawings, serviceability letter, just noting that the adequacy of municipal pipes to service this additional unit. And that's all part of the public record, available upon request. Next slide, please. So there is a site plan with the conceptual on-street parking, where he's looking to create a parking space at the rear there on fairly tight towards the rear lot line. It looks like there is the parking space should meet the width required by zoning, and we're in discussions with the engineering technologist to ensure that there is adequate clearance, and we're working with the applicant to ensure that that's provided one way or the other with parking. So I think there's a few options. There's a few options here, and then this easement, of course, is shared with the Rexall pharmacy next door. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the public meeting is to involve the community in considering a change of land use rules for an area of land. So ultimately, the town is being asked to create an exception to the current zoning to accommodate this form of development at this location. And this is an opportunity for discussion with the committee, with the public, and that will all help inform the recommendation to council. Next slide, please. So consultation, of course, is an integral part of the planning process. We do agency consultation first, just to ensure that the adequacy of the supporting information, and that's where we work with Public Works when they're servicing questions, for instance. Notice of the public meeting, of course, was given in accordance with the Planning Act that requires a minimum 20 days circulation to neighbors and posting on site. Next slide, please. So when we receive a zoning amendment application and we're evaluating it, we have to look at the broad intent of our official plan. That creates council's, that it informs council's broad policy goals and objectives for development. So that's implemented in zoning, but the plan is really, it's what we look at when we look at a zoning change, just to ensure that it meets council's objectives for development downtown and broadly. We also consider feedback from neighbors, those who are most impacted, feedback from agencies who have a technical jurisdiction here, and then of course staff and the committee make a recommendation to council. Next slide, please. So so following this meeting, we will review any written and oral comments received, and we will be bringing a report and a recommendation forward at the next available meeting. As Jacqueline mentioned, the decision maker for the zoning application is council, and all zoning decisions have a 20-day appeal period. So I will pause there, and Jacqueline, I'll let you take the meeting back over. Thank you, everyone.
Carl. So we'll begin by hearing from members of the public. All comments and questions need to be addressed through the vice chair. If you have signed in with the recording secretary and have requested to speak to this application, I will call on you by name one at a time to offer your feedback. So Sarumi, did you have anything you'd like to?
No, not at this point. No, thank you. It's just for my information only.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open the floor to the applicant to provide any further clarification or comment. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'm working on my technology. Thanks, Carl. I think Carl.
Sorry, Joe, we can't hear you very well.
Can't hear him at all.
Really well. When we took possession of this building, that space was vacant and was occupied by the former owner. And when we're looking at it, realizing the on housing currently, which is very obvious. There's been a lot of reports and documents.
We're only getting.
Specifically, the housing task force.
We got nothing there at all.
No,
Did we maybe lost him totally?
if he tries to come back in, maybe it'll be better.
There we go. Joe, maybe just leave your video off. We had a hard time. Kind of. All right. Do you want to give it another try there, Joe?
Nothing.
You allowed to type anything in the chat?
Madam Chair, even if Joe could, Mary, is there a way that he can connect with us by phone, or David, if you're listening, can he phone it in and we could hear him?
He can phone in. I'm not sure if he has access to his email, but I can send him the details by phone real quick.
Perhaps he can hear us, but we just can't hear him.
Do you want to give that a try, Joe? Just calling in.
Because I think he had an interesting story. I just couldn't hear a word of it.
Where do we stand here?
Yeah. Maybe he's trying to call in here now.
Bless you.
I was muted.
You went like this.
You're back, Joe. Can we give it another try? Can you hear us, Joe? Okay, connecting.
I can empathize with him that he is probably 10 times more frustrated than we are at this point.
It's never fun.
No.
I'm not frustrated. Just where do we go from here? If what points do we feel that he's trying to make here?
Is there important information that we have not been apprised of?
Well, Madam Chair and Carl, you can chime in. We've got a difficulty here. Is it not possible to receive his input in writing via email subsequent to this meeting?
Yes, Carl.
Yes, that is possible. Any information submitted prior to council making a decision would be entered into to the public record, and we can certainly provide that to PAC. And I will let ultimately PAC does not. If you want to wait until you hear that information and see that information, you don't need to make your recommendation this evening. You can make your recommendation at the next. We can add that to the special meeting we have coming up in a couple of weeks. But I'll let the committee decide how to proceed.
Well, Madam Chair, our only function here is to decide whether or not this bachelor apartment should be allowed to exist, because it seems to me that it mostly exists now, But as far as the parking is concerned, the difference between one parking space and 1.25 parking space is so insignificant that we don't even need to worry about it. So what is there about this proposal that anyone objects to?
Okay, Wendy?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, even without being able to hear Joe, I think Carl's report was fairly substantial. We have all the information we need to make a decision. I'm sure that Joe has more information for us and I'd like to see it. But after reading the report and knowing that we have no other public comments, I would say that this is appropriate development and in keeping, at least from council's perspective, with the strategic plan regarding housing and our approach to accessibility. I walked through there this morning and it's quite attractive when you walk down that alley, how the residential is tucked in away from the streetscape on Main. And I don't have any problem supporting the proponent's request for the special exception and the reduction of this parking spots to one. I do have one question though, with regard to the parking. Carl, did I understand you? Because not on the drawing I saw, but it's a barrier-free apartment, and the suggestion in the report was that the parking would be off-site. Or while you were talking, did you say that you were going to consult with Vanessa to see if one parking spot could be at the back?
Yeah, Carl.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the parking details are being finalized. The zoning bylaw establishes minimum dimensions for a parking space and looks for adequate turning. So the preference is to accommodate that parking on site. That would be certainly what we're looking to achieve, and we're just looking to iron that out. But if for whatever reason that space on site can't be used, if it's needed for snow storage or anything else, then the proponent has confirmed that he can work out an arrangement with an abutting property owner to secure the space as needed. Mary and I did have a consultation with our solicitor as well, just confirming options that we can implement that through zoning and make it as hopefully as painless as possible to just formalize any of those parking arrangements. So the goal is to get it on site. We think that can likely happen, but there is another option. There is another option available, and certainly that will be confirmed prior to our report to council.
Okay, then I'm fine with going ahead and supporting the proponent's request at this point.
Jay?
I'm certainly fine with it. The one question I have is, and I'm getting old because I can't remember how long ago this was. It wasn't that long ago, but there was another site on Main Street beside, and some of the planning committee members will remember, beside Lannon's, where there was a proposal for a lower level residential that council decided should be make sure that there was commercial there, which I wasn't on board with that, but I'm just wondering if that owner of that that particular property will see this and say, well, what about me?
Wendy?
Can't see much of a commercial property back in the back of that building. I took a walk.
No, that's true. No,
Yeah, I think I do recall it as well, Jay, but I do think this is a completely different scenario in that this is residential at the back of probably not front facing on the downtown core. So
no, there is a difference.
Yeah.
However, given anyway, I don't want to bring up an older argument, but
Joe has joined by phone too, Madam Chair.
Oh, good.
I agree.
Yes, hi.
I thought of the same thing, but I think the shape of the building, the shape of how the lot is used,
oh yeah,
it does feel different.
A little bit, yeah. it is different, but and yet the same. We want downtown residential, but that was that's an old argument. So
Okay, maybe we can hand it back over to Joe.
Can anybody hear me now?
That's great.
Yes.
yes.
Good. I should have brought my children with me to show me how to run this. Yeah, sorry, to further on to what Carl was saying, I'm sorry I missed in the middle there, but yeah, related to the housing task force, we obviously see a need for housing downtown, especially something that's on the main floor that's barrier free. I mean, that is, we have several tenants in town that would absolutely die to get into a unit like the one that we're proposing. Our biggest concern when it comes to the commercial at the back is that we have the existing residential sandwiched in the middle. So behind the commercial restaurant, we're proposing to have, if it stays commercial, find a commercial tenant first off, and then have commercial patrons essentially walk past a residential unit to go to the commercial unit. But then we also have the access for 3 apartments in the adjacent door. So for us, the consistency to make it all residential makes sense for us. And we can also make a really nice unit. It's going to have air conditioning. It's going to be brand new. We do not need to add or change any of our existing piping. Everything is perfect in terms of the serviceability. And it's another unit downtown, which is exactly what the town's been asking for.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Any other comments from the committee or questions?
Just one of, if I might, Madam Chair, because Joe didn't hear the middle part. So we were talking about which one of us thought that we were supportive of your approach to the residential unit, Joe. So we were just in the middle of that discussion when we got you back.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we understand. Yeah, in terms of planning stuff, it's this building does not fit currently in any type of planning scenario. It's built more like a motel style with the driveway on the side. So it is a very unique building. And we knew when we purchased the building that at some point in time we were going to have to address the issues. And we have gone through, for months and months with the town, with the building department, with the fire department, and there's been a lot of steps taken. So I would just want everybody to recognize that, we're putting a lot of effort into this building, and we just want to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever happens, that we can actually sort this out. So,
well, Madam Chair, if you wanted to recap, because I think we had consensus.
Yeah.
Anyway,
are we ready to entertain a motion?
Yes.
For the application ZA-21-01, moved by Wendy, seconded by Bill. All in favor? Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So thank you for attending and participating in the planning process for application ZA-21-01. Any participants that have not signed in and require further notice regarding this application are asked to reach out to the planning coordinator, Mary Remming, by phone at the town hall. Appeal rights as prescribed by the Planning Act will be outlined on the notice of decision. If you have any questions on this application or the process, I invite you to get in touch with our senior planner or planning coordinator. So this concludes the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda. All right, priority issues. Application SP 21-13, 7 Maple Avenue. Carl?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm bringing for the committee's attention and preliminary review and comment a substantial new development application that we've received for the old medical building at the corner of Maple and William, about a block away from from this property here that we just looked at, and about a block away from the Hotel Rideau. So this one, so at this point we have a proposal to demolish the, and I think you've all seen the report. We have a proposal to demolish the existing 2-story building and construct a new 4-story building, that a 4-story mixed-use building that would include commercial on the ground floor, so 2 larger commercial units as well as as well as some parking. And then on the upper levels, 33 rental residential units. So there'd be a total of, so there'd be 3 bachelor units, 12 one-bedroom and 18 two-bedroom units. Each unit would feature a private balcony. So the applicants have worked very hard in this case to actually design their proposal in full compliance with the C1 zoning. They've worked through all of the different portions of the commercial and non-commercial provisions and the general provisions in the bylaw for parking and other details to design a zoning compliant project. However, site plan control, of course, is required to implement design, grading, drainage, landscaping, stormwater management, and all those other technical pieces. The applicants are proposing a total of 50 parking spaces. 19 of those would be underground under the lower level of the, or at least behind and underneath the building, and then the rest of them would be in two lots. So the 2 parking stalls are proposed to meet the AODA standards for accessible parking, 1 in the semi-heated garage and 1 outside. An elevator is proposed within the parking garage to access the upper story, some of which I understand are intended to be accessible. An interesting feature of this development that I believe is fairly new to Smith Falls is a communal landscape terrace to provide open space for tenants on the 2nd story above the balcony, or above the ground, above the intersection. So the building would be essentially a square shape on the lower level, but it would be more L-shaped on the upper levels with this communal, with this terrace, which would be landscaped about a little over 2,000 square feet, and that would provide some open space for the tenants. The total building height will be about 15 meters. The facade will feature a mix of red brick veneer, steel siding, and dark gray aluminum accent panels. The applicants are proposing new trees along the property lines and are working with Hydro, of course. They have lines along both frontages and we've requested comment from Hydro on the application. I understand they're working with them, and they're proposing to work with the town on landscaping details along the William Street facade. So that I don't have those details to share with you at this point, but that's something that we'll be working with you and once we'll be working with them and once we get feedback from Hydro, and we'll have a better sense of what we can do. Bike parking spaces are shown, and snow storage and on-site mitigation are identified. So this is a pretty new application to us. So we've recently circulated it to review with Hydro, RVCA, Public Works, and our colleagues in other departments. So we don't have the preliminary review comments back from our colleagues. So at this point, now's an excellent time to incorporate any additional feedback that the PAC may have on this application that would form part of our initial comment back to the proponents. So certainly, it's fair to say that this is a substantial development for this end of the town, and staff are grateful for the work that the applicants have done on the project and also fitting the zoning. It's going to be a significant development at that site, and I welcome any feedback from Planning Advisory Committee on the proposal.
Madam Chair, is this building currently vacant?
I believe so. Carl, is it vacant?
I understand the current medical building is vacant. I think some storage has been happening within it, but it is not. It does, to the best of my knowledge, there isn't a regular tenant in there, and hasn't been for quite some time.
That's what it looked like. Well, that's what the reason I asked is because that's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, Wendy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Bill. It looks vacant. There's some shipping containers and stuff like that out front, but that property's been lying fallow for some time and deteriorating considerably. I think Hammer and Nails continued confidence in Smith Falls by developing a 4-story, 33-unit apartment in the downtown core is great news. The very interesting about the green space, and I'll really be looking forward to seeing that in site plan. I don't have any reservations about supporting in principle the proponent's application. I think this is welcome, very welcome.
Jay?
Yeah, ditto. I mean, what an eyesore and what an opportunity for infill in the downtown. And that's what we want. I mean, we just talked about a bachelor apartment. Well, we're talking about what 33 units here, right in the downtown where people can walk everywhere. It's perfect. And you know, I'm sure that given our past experience with this developer, i.e. on Beckwith, that they're going to work with our public works. And I mean, that's a lot of parking spots. 50 parking spots is a lot. And there's, you know, but it seems to me that pending all that, I'm certainly supportive of it. It's great news. Excellent.
There's all the underground parking too is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay. So do we have a motion to support
I support it.
the principle of this application? Okay.
Everybody does.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Jay, all in favor. Okay. Great. Correspondence items. Is there anything to add, Carl?
Well, just an update. Council has selected WSP Canada as our consultants in the zoning bylaw review. So we have a kickoff meeting. Staff have a kickoff meeting with them early next week to set the groundwork for the project. That's an important project that'll certainly look at some zoning pieces and may even it might have a broader look at some of the zoning pieces relating to the first application we've received as far as parking spaces and so on. So we'll keep the planning advisory committee up to date as far as that goes, and certainly we'll welcome your engagement in that process as it moves along.
How long of a process is that, Carl?
We did inform, and unfortunately, it could take close to a year. This is a big ticket piece. They are proposing to go above and beyond the minimum Planning Act requirements as far as consultation, including a zoning issues workshop at the beginning, and it will be touching upon a lot of different issues. In my experience as well, sometimes it's a little unpredictable what can come up during a zoning review, and there could be issues that we're not even thinking about right now that might take on a life of their own. So we've built in some time to assume that can happen. Obviously, we'd love to get this done as quickly as possible, but there's a good possibility that we could be looking at a year to have that done.
Okay. All right. Project updates. I guess that's an update. The next meeting, the Special Planning Advisory Committee meeting, June 24th, 2021. Can you clarify what time that's at, the special meeting?
I'll look to Mary to confirm that. I believe, would it be 5 o'clock?
It is 5 o'clock. We have a public meeting that evening.
Okay.
I do have a couple of updates. Project updates. In the last couple of months, the committee looked at site plans for our Tim Hortons and townhouse complexes at the corner of Percy and Lear. We've provided staff and agencies have provided follow-up comments on both of those applications over the last couple of weeks to a month or so for one of them. So we're working with the proponents to on some revisions to the plans, and hopefully once we get all of those aligned, then we'll be taking them to council for approval. But just to let you know that the applicants are diligently working on them, and we're working with them on some of the technical pieces.
Great. I was coming into town the other morning from the south end, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice to grab a coffee this end of town. Not yet. Not yet. All right. So adjournment. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Okay. Thank you. Okay.